Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us to our RightScape Sprinkler Spruce-Up workshop. My name is Juan Garcia. I am the Senior Landscape Water Efficiency Specialist with the district. And today's workshop is all about sprinklers, repairs, new products, smart technologies, you name it. Hopefully, we should be able to cover everything as best as possible. Let's see. I hope you guys are enjoying this cute little picture of this dog that loves to bite sprinklers. Let's get started. So a little bit about webinar housekeeping. Please keep your microphones muted. We are going to be having a little Q&A towards the very end. If you have any questions, please submit them via the chat feature. If you look on your app or on your desktop, whichever way you're going, look for the chat button. And once again, just submit all your questions via the chat feature. Let's see. So we'll try to answer as many questions as we can during the end of the presentation, but I will be responding to all the presentations in the email that I send after the workshop. I'm going to be sending the slides, the presentation slides, any kind of questions that are asked. I'm going to be answering them and also submitting that in the email, and also some links to our programs and rebates and so forth. We do have a webinar hotline, which is right there on your screen, 949-453-5656. If you were having any kind of issues, go ahead and please call that number. So with that said, let's just jump right into this presentation. We do have a couple of our of my colleagues of our staff on this presentation, so they should be able to address any kind of issues going forward. All right, so the agenda for today, we're going to talk about a little bit about landscape water needs right off the bat, something that I like to do for my presentations. The irrigation system at a glance. We're going to talk about all those irrigation system components, irrigation improvements and repairs, and any kind of incentive programs and online resources. Sprinklers, one thing about sprinklers is that um, it is what they use a lot of water, and if they're not managed properly, they can create a lot of waste. um, when it comes to our landscapes does require some water, but it's all about looking at what kind of materials we put out there. Throughout the year we have various workshops that address landscape plants and designing and all kinds of things. So just look month to month um, for things that for workshops that might interest you. So right off the bat, we're going to get into create a beautiful landscape. So the ultimate goal with any landscape is, of course, for it to be beautiful and something that looks appealing to your house and to your property. But we really got to consider certain areas, and especially those lawn areas. Those lawn areas, they can utilize quite a bit of water. So if the lawn is not providing any kind of purpose, if it's not functional, then consider reducing that area, or trying to eliminate the areas that are that are not being used for a lot of activity. Consider reusing those areas. You convert to climate appropriate plant material, whether they be California native or non-native climate appropriate species, and consider more decorative permeable hardscapes. When we look at grass, being such a high water user, um, if you look at the slide here, so it says for every 1,000 square feet of grass that you have, it's about anywhere from 25 to 35,000 gallons of water that's going to consume throughout the year. In the summer months, of course, it's going to pick up, so right around 4,000 gallons plus or minus of water that it needs just to keep that 1,000 square feet of grass maintained and looking healthy. So when you consider, changing it over to more of a climate appropriate landscape, the water savings is significant, about 30 to 50% water savings. So now that same 1,000 square feet, it's going to use around 15 or 20,000 gallons per year. And in the summer months, right around 2,500 plus, give or take, gallons. Now, when we start converting even to even lower water use plants, our water savings anywhere from 60 to 80%. As you can see, the water usage for the year drops down quite a bit. And then of course, per month in the summer, we're right around 1,500 gallons of water in the summer months. Now, when we start utilizing California native plants, this water savings, of course, is significant. We're using plants that are native to our beautiful state of California. We could start looking at plants that are actually native to our region in California, being Southern California, and then even closer to all these South County areas, Irvine, and all the nearby cities. We build habitat for pollinators, and I love that bullet point where it says fully or partially summer dormant. That's one of the benefits of native plants. And we're talking, you can have everywhere from deciduous plants, you name it, succulents, just beautiful natives that we have. We're not talking about sticks or cactuses, but we do have, of course, desert areas, but we're talking about beautiful, lush, and nice looking plants that utilize very little water. As you can see there, require no water, supplemental water once they are established. Okay, with that said, so that was just the beginning part about water use in general. But let's start taking a look at the sprinkler system. Now, I wanted to keep this a fun class because sometimes sprinklers can be a little boring. So I really wanted just to talk about all the little important things as homeowners or renters that were out there when we see these sprinkler systems and how to control them and how to manage them properly. Um, so what is a sprinkler system doing? All it's doing is we're mimicking rainfall. Basically, we're trying to get water to parts of our landscape in the most efficient way possible. We do have what we call automatic irrigation systems, where you have a controller or a timer that turns on the sprinkler system from time to time throughout the day, which we'll talk about later on, and waters some very specifics. Now, when it comes to watering, of course, hand watering is the most efficient way we could water because we know where that water is going to be used. And so that's one thing is that we always got to consider is what kind of systems do we have out there? How is it being utilized properly? Now, like I said, your sprinkler system, hopefully when it turns on, it should be watering specific areas. We call that hydrozoning. If you're, for instance, if you have fruit trees, they should be watering those fruit trees in a specific manner because they do require different amounts of water and care throughout the year. If you have a lawn area or planter areas, both these areas should be watered completely separate. The lawn requires more frequency of irrigation. Like I said, more days of irrigation, where the planter areas require less frequency of irrigation. So if you have everything on, let's say, one program on your controller and it's watering every day or 5 days out of the week, something might be getting overwatered, something might be getting less water than what it actually needs. Do you have native plants? Do you have uh, drought tolerant, climate appropriate plants? Do you have veggie beds? So all these areas require, different amounts of water, different days of watering, and just different care. So hopefully your system is separated enough where you have this all completely irrigated in separate stations. And that's where we talk about hydrozoning, so it's important that we have our areas of landscape separated into these unique little hydrozones, with similar water needs throughout these areas. Now, of course, sprinkler systems, you really don't have to have one if you're going to be out there doing watering by hand. So let's see. So somebody made a comment that the system is a little bit low. Let me try to adjust that. But if you're having issues listening to me, please let me know.
On you sound great on my end.
Okay. So, okay, just want to make sure that I sound good for everybody. All right. So now this is just to show water use throughout the year. So when we're talking about irrigating our landscapes, we should be following what's called a bell curve. This table here is actually showing weather data from our weather station in Irvine. We actually have 3 weather stations in Irvine where we gather weather data for landscape water budgeting, and that's how our budgets are are used and converted by using this weather data and using the landscape formula. We say, okay, this is how much water your landscape needs throughout the year. Now, this weather station sits on top of the highest water use plant we have, which is grass, and it's measuring water loss in two ways, evaporation and transpiration. Transpiration is just the water moving through the plant and out the pores of the plant. And so there's a way that we measure this. As you can see here by this graph, uh, by this chart, you can see how grass uses water throughout the year. You can see in January it's very low, and as the summer starts to increase, water use increases, and then it goes right back down by December. And right now, this is the time where we see sometimes a lot of our customers go over budget because they don't manage their controllers, and that drop in temperature and weather. Even though we are still dry, the weather and the weather is cooler, the days are short, and the plants know this, and they start to utilize less and less water. So it's important once again to really manage our controllers during this time and look at our scheduling. There's our rain pattern. As so far this year, it's been null, but this is our typical rain pattern here in Southern California. This is how much water a cool season grass needs to look healthy. Cool season grasses like tall fescue, marathon, and so forth. Our budgets are based more on warm season grasses like a Bermuda, St. Augustine grass. So this is what warm season grass needs as far as water use goes. Now, when we look at climate appropriate plants or medium water use plants, this is how much water it requires throughout the year. And you can see that bell curve right on each of these plant types. So as it starts to get warmer, we start to increase watering. And as it gets cooler, we should be reducing. So this is kind of your typical bell curve throughout the year. Now, this is just normal plant material. Grasses and climate appropriate. These are exotic plants from all around the world that are well adapted to our Mediterranean climate here in California. But as you can see, as summer picks up, all these plants require water. But what do you think our native plants will do? So our native plants actually follow a different bell curve. So our native plants are mostly active in the cooler months and less active in the summer months. So it all goes with selecting the right native plants for your area. If you're going to consider using native plants, try to utilize localized plant material, and you're going to, it's a great benefit, not only once again by creating a habitat and bringing in pollinators and bringing in natural plant material, but also by overall reducing water use. I know that, I'm a plant lover. I have almost every single type of plant you can imagine, but they are in different areas. And I know that this past summer with my natives, I gave them about a good splash of water once a month, a good deep soaking throughout those hot periods, but that was it. So in June, July, August, September, they got a good deep splashing of water, and they were fine. The area looks nice and manicured right now. So hydrozoning is key, whether you're using natives or non-natives and grass and so forth. Just make sure you have all these little unique areas being watered separately. So and that way you can be efficient with your water use. Like I said, these plant types require different amounts of water throughout the year. So it's important to keep that separated. Now, when we talk about the irrigation system, so here we start going into all the bits and pieces of the irrigation system. So, I put a couple of some diagrams on here, some irrigation plans, just to show you what goes into creating an irrigation system and how well it's being designed or installed. How long are those systems been in the ground? How long does product last as far as those components? Spray heads. What's the life of a spray head? What's the life of a valve? What's the life of these lines? Over the years, they break and we have to maintain them. And maintenance is always the key with any system, because you can design a perfect system, but as soon as you walk away from it and it starts to work, it slowly starts to go into decline. Little things happen, which makes it start to work inefficiently. And then sometimes when things are not being watered properly or water's not getting to where we need to, we typically raise up. We typically start to water more to compensate, and which puts us over our budget. So here we have another diagram. This is more of a drip system. And as you can see, so now we're going to start getting into this. As you can see here by this diagram, there's the water meter, and there's that main line, right, going in. So that main line goes into our home, of course. And what happens is, for most of us, they tee into that main line, and they run that main line for the irrigation system. So there's a lot of places where you can start having failures in your irrigation system. So that's always important. This meter here is always a great tool to see if we might have any potential leaks on the property. So one thing is, always try to figure out where your shut-off valves are at, just for when you have to do any kind of emergency repairs and so forth. Try to figure out where those shut-off valves are at. So here's your water meter. Like I said, your main line. Hopefully, goes into your home. Hopefully, you should have a indoor shutoff valve. Um, Also, too, by that shutoff valve, it is recommended that we have a pressure regulator for when that water goes into the home. We reduce that pressure to around 60 to 70 psi, so uh, it doesn't affect our appliances and the pipes inside of our homes. So it's always one of those things to always consider. And with that concept, I'm going to bring up pressure a little bit later on with our sprinkler system. Like I said, with that main line, wire that goes into our house, you can see here it's teed off to our sprinkler system, and hopefully when they did build your irrigation system, they put in a shut-off valve for your irrigation system in case you have to do any repairs or anything, or shut off the lines. So here's that main line now. There's a shut-off valve, and then back into the ground, and then off into our valves, and then after our valves, we call this the lateral lines to our irrigation areas. Hopefully this makes sense. So look for those shut-off valves. They can help us out a lot, especially when we're thinking that we might have issues out there, as far as a leak or any kind of repairs that need to be made. Let me go back a slide really quick. So one thing is that, like I said, the meter is a great tool. So on the meter face itself, there is a flow dial, and there also is a small little triangle. That's also a slow flow indicator. And when nobody's using water in the home and the sprinkler system is off, it should be still. You shouldn't see any kind of movement. If you do see any kind of spinning on that face of whether it's be the sweep arm needle or the little leak low flow indicator, and there could be potentially water moving somewhere on this. So that's why it's important to have these shutoff valves to try to isolate the issue. I would shut off the irrigation, I would shut off the indoor just to isolate that main line coming in, and then check that meter, see if any kind of spinning. If it's stopped, then most likely you can have a leak on the forward part. So it's a great tool, once again, to manage any kind of leaks on the property, or just to see if you do have anything like that. It's a great tool, that water meter. So look for these shut off valves. It's really, really important. Okay, so after that, so after the main line come all these ugly looking valves that, we have our anti-siphon valves here, and they stick out of the ground. Not a nice little thing, right? So the water actually comes up here, goes through this valve mechanism, and all this does is, you can see the wiring there, that when it gets triggered, this opens up and allows the water to flow down and into the irrigation, the lateral lines. Now this part right here is actually called, this is the anti-siphon part. This is actually prevents water. So if water wants to come backwards, you'll see sometimes water coming out of this top here. And that's what it's for. It's to prevent that back suction back. So this is actually, you got to really think about, this is tied into that main line that also supplies your home. So if this is not installed properly, or if this thing fails, there is potential where you can get some contamination in those lines. So it's always important to check those anti-siphon valves for any kind of issues. Make sure they're working properly. Over time they do start to wear. These solenoids here, which trigger on the valve, sometimes they rupture over time depending on how old the product is. So those are always just key things to check in your sprinkler system. Now, here, these are inline valves. These are valves that are below ground. If you do have valves that are in the ground like this, as you can see, here's the valve part there, just like here. What it's missing is this anti-siphon part. And valves that are inline, what you need to have on the line way before then, actually on the irrigation main line, is you need to have what's called a backflow um, device. And that's a whole other can of worms talking about that. Most of us do not have that unless you have a really large property. Sometimes when you have a separate meter, even feeding the irrigation system. So if you have questions about that, just go ahead and put them in the chat, and I'll make sure that I address it. And also I will try to reach out to you personally, um, since we do have your contact information if you want to talk a little about inline valves in the ground. Ooh, here we go. So the controller valve wiring. So, I always talk about this too because we got to know all those little components that are in our home, right? Now, from the controller, here's an irrigation timer. So you can see here the irrigation timer, and it's usually hooked into the wall. Now, you can sometimes they're indoor in the garage or in a closet somewhere, or they could be outside. So if they are outside, it's important to have a controller that is made for outside, so you don't get any kind of corrosion going on within this wiring. So from the controller here, as you can see, here's the wiring bundle. So let's pretend that this is out in the field, and here you have your valves right here. And this blue wire, one thing about residential wiring is they're all color coded, so it helps us out identify which valve or which station is watering what. So this blue line here, this blue line is for our station number 1. So we can see here, if you follow the path, so this is station number 1 there. The green one, station number 2 is this valve here, and station number 3 is that purple one there. So each valve has its own control wire, as you can see there. And then there's this white wire. It's called the common wire. And you'll see on the controller face itself, you'll see a little symbol that says COM, or word that says COM for common. And these valves and this line is shared by all the valves here. So basically all it's doing is creating this circuit. So when it triggers on, you get this alternating current going through. So number 1 might come on, the controller triggers number 1 to come on. It waters that a certain specific area of the landscape. It shuts off, and then it goes on to number 2. This one will trigger, and then of course when this shuts off, it'll keep going in line through all those valves until it's finished watering your landscape. So it's one of those things to really consider is going out and checking. Now, if you see here, these splices, so these are actually wire nuts, but they should have a silicone filling inside to keep moisture and everything out. There's also what we call a dry splice to prevent that from water going in there and corroding, because then you're not going to have a good contact. And sometimes these valves do not trigger on because of connection issues that might happen on. So hopefully this made sense to you. And once again, I'll be happy to explain it more if needed. Okay, so we talked about the water meter. We talked about the shutoff valve. We talked a little about the controller and the wiring. Now let's get to know all those other bits and pieces in the landscape as far as the other components. So spray heads. Spray heads are really meant for smaller irregular shaped areas. It's really meant for grass areas. One thing about these spray heads are really, it's a lot of turf centric product out there. So one thing is they need that clearance. So they come up with different pop-ups, whether it be 2 inches heights on the way up to 12 inches in height. As we're talking about the pop-up of this of the flow of the stem that comes out of the pop-up body down there. The radius of throw, or basically how far they throw out, anywhere from 2 feet on out to 15 or more. But one thing about spray heads is, look at that efficiency. Right out of the box, they're around 75% efficient. So we are getting water loss due through evaporation and misting and so forth. And that's another key thing here. Look at that optimum pressure rating. It is a range, but most of the time spray heads want to be at 30 psi, and there's other types of spray nozzles, such as we call MP rotators that want to be, or rotating nozzles that want to be a little bit higher pressure. So how do we control that pressure? And that's what I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So, but they do require that pressure. Anything above that, we start getting misting and even more water waste. Here we have rotors. Now rotors, they came from that good old rainbird rotor that we all know, and we know that sound when it goes. That little sound is actually a hammer hitting the stream. That's hits that stream, so it creates that close throw all the way till far away. But these are all engineered now, so you can see this one is shooting out really far and close. And this, they go back and forth as far as left to right, left to right. So one thing about rotors are they're actually really efficient, but they do put out a lot of water. They do require higher pressure, but they can require a big, large area with just one rotor. And it is a lot more efficient. Let's see. Once again, if you do have any questions, yeah, just go ahead and submit them via the chat feature, and we'll go into that. And somebody did ask about pressure. I'll talk about pressure in a bit. Bubblers. So bubblers here is, one thing I do like bubblers. If the area is confined and you can have a bubbler out there just to kind of soak that area down, why not? As long as it doesn't run off, it's good to have bubblers. So this is a bubbler, and that top there, you can actually screw it left or right to reduce or increase flows. Some of them have a screw on top, but there are meant for that kind of a flood irrigation type of thing. So a lot of water flow, the pressure, it can take a lot of pressure, but it is efficient. Once again, if you're going to flood that area out, if the water is confined and it's getting to that area, so it's important. Let's see. Drip irrigation. So now we're getting into a little bit about drip. Now there are great drip rebates available, which we'll talk about as well in a little bit. But drip irrigation, a very efficient way of watering. They do make drip systems for above or subsurface, actually, where you can bury them into the ground. They're excellent where there is water flow limitations. Um, the optimum pressure, want to be anywhere from 20 to 40 psi, so it is very low pressure, and efficiency, we're talking about 95% on up. Now, there is a new kind of a method that we are doing drip irrigation. It's just, well, it's not really super new, but it's just the thing that's being practiced more and more and more. It's using what we call inline emitter tubing. As you can see here in this tubing here, the emitters are built in. Um, you know, Kind of an old way of doing things. You use the spaghetti tubing and you punch into the line, and you have all this tubing going out in different ways, in different little areas, and you're able to put down the little different micro bubblers and so forth. It does work, but once again, this is kind of a newer way of doing irrigation as far as using the inline emitter tubing, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So um, when it comes to irrigation improvements, so I think we're going at a good pace. It is around 12:29. Uh, See, irrigation improvements and repairs. And oh, I want you to look at this picture here. So this is what I was talking about earlier about these splices. You can see here's the valve, there's the valve part, solenoid, and the water goes down this way. There's the anti-siphon parts. But look at these wires, how they have these nice, beautiful dry splices on there. Yes, it might look like a little much, but once again, I do know um, that there's no moisture coming inside. It's a good connection. Now, one thing I did, I saw a question come in really quick about the drip systems. And one thing about drip systems, let me just go back one, is when it comes to a drip system, other components for this would be a filter. Drip irrigation is needed what's called a filter. They could be a Y filter or a basket filter. They make different filters. But it's important to have a filter on it, and of course a pressure regulator. Sometimes more for our residential applications, they make a strainer and uh, pressure regulator combo where it's all in one. And so it's important to have that where you can filter out the water before it goes into the lines, which is always key. All right, so when it comes to irrigation improvements, there's a lot of great new technologies available that can help you manage your water on site a lot better. You know, um, so right here, you're looking at a slide of what we call weather-based irrigation controllers. So these are actually controllers that utilize weather to adjust their watering for the landscape. And a lot of these types of controllers, it's very smart information that you have to enter into these controllers, into the scheduling. They want to know what type of plants you're watering, what type of sprinkler system you have, whether it's drip or spray head or rotor. I mean, just they're asking you really smart information. Soil types. Some of them ask you if there's a slope. But it's taking all this information and utilizing real-time weather, and it's adjusting the watering for you. And also, depending on rainfall, they can shut off when it rains. And the best thing also a lot about these new controllers and the way they're making them is that, as you can see there by the picture, a lot of it is app-based where you can just have control there on your phone. You can get notices. You can trigger on your system from your phone. You can see there's a lot of data that it starts to store. So you can see there by that history. So depending on the type of controller, there are numerous controllers out there that are weather based now. I've seen some new models coming out that are under $100. Some of them are over $100. They can get very expensive, but depending on what kind of control you want. One thing is there are rebates for this controller, which I'll show you a little bit later. Or you can go on to our IRWD.com website or RightScapeNow.com website and look for rebates, which I'm going to take you guys to a little bit later. But always look for this WaterSense label, and also make sure that for any of these rebate programs, make sure that the product is found on the eligible products list. There's a rebate also for high efficiency nozzles. So these are the nozzles that go on top of the spray heads. Now, these are called rotary spray nozzles. There's different manufacturers, of course, that makes them. They come in both female and male threaded bodies, nozzle types, depending on different manufacturers. So they'll usually just fit um, on different manufacturer types, depending on the brands, of course. Rainbird makes Rainbird for only Rainbird. These are actually Hunter and P rotators. Their nozzles can go on Rainbird bodies, on Hunter bodies, on Toro bodies. And then Toro also makes rotary nozzles. There's also K-Rain. There's a lot of different nozzles out there that are efficient. So these are rotary spray nozzles. Um, there are also other high efficiency nozzles that are on that list that qualify for rebates. For instance, there's the Rainbird U series nozzle, the Rainbird HE Van nozzle, Toro Precision nozzle. You can see there's a lot of different high efficiency nozzles, but with all these nozzles that we're looking at, whether they're uh, rotary nozzles, these other types of nozzles, we were talking about pressure earlier. Those spray head bodies, those bodies that these nozzles screw onto, those stems, you know, they do make what's called pressure regulating bodies now. And that's going to be a little bit of great information that I have for you. But, when it comes to controlling pressure on the irrigation system, um, you can control pressure by either putting a pressure regulator at the valve. So earlier we saw a picture of valve. Let me go back there really quick. So they make a pressure regulator that goes on here to where the solenoid is at. But depends on, once again, what make and model of brand you have. But that pressure regulator goes on there is usually a dial where you can dial it down to the pressure that that line is feeding that sprinkler product. Whether you have spray heads, you can set it at 30. If you have rotors, you can set it at a higher pressure. But once again, it depends on manufacturers if they do have that. For drip, like I said, the pressure is controlled by either a pressure regulator or the Y filter. But for sprinklers now, um, there is actually a new state mandate when it comes to pressure regulating bodies. So as of October 1st, um, all spray bodies have to have pressure regulation built in. Um, uh, Companies and vendors are able to sell old product if they're still in stock, but anything moving forward has to have pressure regulating in it, as far as the components for these bodies. So they have a pressure regulator inside. Some of them have what's called a check valve. A check valve is, let's say you have a head at a very low point and the water just leaks out of the line when the system is off. Those check valves just keep the water in the line so you don't get those leaks, those leaking valves at low points. They have what's called better wiper seals. So as you can see here on this body that's cut out, a little white ring that goes around. That's the wiper seal. Those are always, they fail a lot. Just over time, they dry out, they crack, and then you'll see water spurting out. So that's one of those things. Now, we do have a rebate program. IRWD, we created our own rebate program for pressure regulating bodies. Um, we are providing a rebate of half the cost of the bodies, pre-tax, of course. So if you're interested, if you are thinking about retrofitting or repairing or just upgrading your system to make it more efficient, there are rebates out there available for you, whether if you're putting in nozzles, but I would also recommend that consider putting in pressure regulating bodies for those areas that you do need to change out and retrofit. So I'm going to go online in a bit, also show you some more information. There is also what we call a spray head to drip program. This program is sponsored by the Municipal Water District of Orange County. It is a spray head, so it's to convert spray head areas. If you're going to convert them into a plant area into drip, you convert them um, into drip really easy without having to dig up all those lines and do a bunch of stuff. So Rainbird actually created this nice little pop-up that, so you can take out your old pop-up, you screw this in, and it has a pressure regulator, has a filter inside, and then you just go on and start building your irrigation system. Now, one thing is that a lot of these manufacturers have great videos on their websites. YouTube has great videos as well to talk about show you how to repair and all these various products. So one thing about the spray head to drip program is the drip that you have to convert it to is it's inline emitter tubing. As you can see here, this is kind of the new way of doing um, drip. As far as you start doing these spacing, you can see the rows, they're usually at 18-inch spacing. And this line, the emitters are embedded into that line. As you can see, these rings of water coming out. They're testing out the line. As you can see, it provides complete coverage of the area without water spraying all over the place. If this is designed properly, installed properly, you have flush valves on the line, you have vacuum air checks on the line. There's a lot of little components that need to be installed so you get a nice, well-built system that's efficient. And these lines are all engineered to not clog up, self-flushing. I mean, just great stuff nowadays. And then once you're done, you just cover this whole area with mulching. You can't even see it come on. The demonstration garden at the district at our headquarters, that's all done with inline emitter tubing. So if you're interested in taking a look at that area, we do have some great demonstration gardens at the district. We have our big drought tolerant garden. We also have a succulent garden now, and we also have a great ground cover demonstration garden of a new plant called Carapia. So please come over to the district when you get a chance. Now the parking lots is our demo gardens. So with this inline emitter tubing, once again, they make it for above ground or subsurface. And once again, pressure regulation is key, but there are rebates available. Okay, so hopefully we're going at a good pace. As you can see I wanted to keep this presentation as far as just informative. There's a lot of stuff in there because if we were to start getting into irrigation system hydraulics and so forth, we'll be here forever. It's a fun topic, but hopefully you're not out there building your systems from scratch. If you are, just once again consult with a professional. And usually we are just out there trying to maintain what we have and make it better, right? So that's with the slide here. As you can see there, visually inspect your system. Maintenance is key, whether we're homeowners, whether we're professional irrigators out there. Maintenance, because these sprinklers, they fail over time. They wear and tear. You could buy a new product right off the bat and then it might just go bad. So it's one of those things where we have to be out there and watch them, because when we don't care for our systems, they start to become inefficient. We start to maybe overwater when there's broken lines. I mean, we just get a lot of water waste. So just always to turn on your sprinkler system, do a walkthrough of them, go station by station with a pen and pad or a notepad and go out there and make notes of all issues and needed repairs and so forth, and also consider retrofit opportunities. Can I convert this area to a more water efficient landscape? Can I convert these sprinklers into a more efficient type of sprinkler type? So it's always key to look at these, because when it comes to sprinkler systems, we're talking about gallons per minute, gallons per hour, but those gallons really start to add up. Typically about 50 to 70% of our water goes out to maintaining landscape. And a lot of that is grass. Like I said, grass does have its uses, but it is a really high water consuming plant. So sprinkler fun, right? Or sprinkler waste, and I don't know how many times I've seen this where I'd be driving down the street and I see, geysers out there gushing out. So, when the nozzle is missing or the body is broken, we're talking water waste, it can be anywhere from 15 gallons a minute, 20 gallons a minute on up, depending on what's broken. If the lines are broken, it can be 40 gallons a minute, on up. And most of the time, when do these sprinklers come on? They usually come on in the middle of the night when we're asleep and we never see the waste. So that's why it's always key to do walkthroughs of the system. Pressure is too high. We talked about the pressure, and pressure is always key with any kind of irrigation system. But like I said, we do offer rebates now for pressure regulating bodies. If you are going to be changing them out, as you can see here by this picture, I can see so many different issues. I can see the misting, the fogging up, the pressure in here must be really, really high. Because once again, if you remember from the slide in the beginning, they tee off of that main line that feeds your home to your sprinkler system. And before our home, we should have a pressure regulator. And that should be the concept with sprinkler systems. Sprinkler systems need to be pressure regulated. So depending on sprinkler type, it all requires a very specific sprinkler. I'm sorry, a very specific pressure. So hopefully we deal with the pressure, because not only when the system is, if this pressure is really high, as you can see here, you're wasting water through fogging, through misting, it's drifting off. It's just throwing that water out in the landscape and all over the place. And so by reducing that pressure to a working pressure or an ideal pressure or the optimum pressure, not only are we putting out the water in a more efficient manner, but we are actually saving water. We're not pushing out so much water at that higher pressure. When the sprinkler heads are too low, you know, maybe you need a higher pop-up, sometimes they cut down that water waste. You maybe talk to your landscaper and ask them, say, hey, do we have a swing arm on that line? You can see here, so this would be the PVC, and here's the swing arm. Sometimes they put this swing arm on. Hopefully, they should have the swing arm on to prevent breaking. I know that my dad loves to drive over that corner sprinkler a lot, and the good thing is that I have it on a swing arm, so he'll call me, and I'll go out there and just do a quick little uh, fix and repair, but nothing too much where the lines are breaking. So that allows for that flexibility. Okay. And, missing nozzles, it happens all the time. It can either be mowed, kicked off, it just happens to be lost, as you can see here, this picture here. So the missing nozzle, not only is it wasting water, but now you don't have enough pressure in the line and the flow in the line, and then other sprinklers won't work properly. So it just goes hand in hand. Depending on what type of sprinkler head or line or anything, it can be as high as 40 gallons per minute as far as water waste. Worn or cracked seals. You can see here the seal is actually worn out. Here's that seal I was talking about earlier. Just over time, they wear out and they pop off. Now, depending on manufacturer, I believe this is Rainbird there. You have to buy a whole new cap. Hunter, you can just buy the seal itself, and also with Toro. So um, just depending on which manufacturer you go with, all these little bits and pieces to repair. If the head is tilted, the water won't be applied in the proper way. Does it have a swing arm? Can you go in there and adjust it, quickly? Are the heads clogged? Is the filter inside that underneath, when you unscrew the nozzles, that filter clogged? So there's always this little things. Maintenance is key when it comes to irrigation systems. Just, do I need to clean that out, flush it out, and then put a new screen in there, put the nozzle back on, and now make it work appropriately. Is it overspraying? Is the water going into different areas where it's not needed? This is a lot of water waste. Can I ratchet it back into place? Irrigation lines. Do I have a broken irrigation line? How can I go about and fix that? So they make with these things devices called slip fixes, which is a cool device to help you fix repairs. And I do have a video on that. If we have enough time, maybe we can watch it. But overall, like I said earlier, YouTube has a lot of videos. All you have to do is look up slip fix repair, irrigation line slip fix repair, and you're going to get tons of videos, or how to repair, or how to convert your drip. I mean, YouTube has a lot of videos on this, and also the main manufacturers place a lot of their videos on YouTube. Plant interference. I don't know how many times I mark this off when I do inspections, is that, pop-up spray heads are really meant for um, open areas. When you do have them in planter areas, you can see here, you get a lot of that interference where the water would just get to a certain part, maybe bounce off into the streets or into other parts of the landscape. So it's one of those opportunities where you can say, hey, can I convert to drip? The main thing is you always want to try to cut down on runoff. Why? Because by cutting down on runoff, we're actually protecting our watershed, our that water, as it drains off and as it runs off, it's picking up pollutants, debris going to our storm drains, which then leads out to our oceans. And it's just it's really important. And in our landscapes, there can be a lot of toxic materials, whether they be fertilizers, pesticides, and you name it. So just be a little conscious of when we're irrigating out there to try to prevent runoff as best as possible. Woo! All right. So I know this was a quick one, everybody. Once again, please submit your questions via the chat feature. This is being recorded and it will be posted. We do have a number of videos already posted, a number of these workshops that I've had in the past. So if you're interested in other topics, once again, just go to our RightScapeNow.com website and there's links to all these videos. So on RightScapeNow.com, all our rebates can be found there: outdoor rebates, turf removal, weather-based controllers, pressure regulating spray bodies, and I'm going to show you in a bit. And also, we have our RightScapeResources.com website. It's a fantastic gardening database, plant selection, watering, hardscape, different landscapes, you name it. Great stuff on there. We do have a couple of workshops coming up. So next month we have our Be a Garden Scene Investigator with the Master Gardeners. So we're going to be doing a lot of online stuff. And then in February, we have Turf Be Gone. And this is me right here, Ask Juan. If you have any questions, you can also email me at askjuan@irwd.com, and I'll be happy to answer as many questions as possible, depending on, of course, subject matter, but just feel free to shoot me an email. Okay, so before we say, let's go. So Joey, I think you're still out there, Joe. Yes.
Hey, Juan.
Okay, so we'll have Joey on for a bit. He has some questions. So this is YouTube, you guys, and I found this video on how to do repair. Can everybody, Joey, can you hear that sound?
I cannot.
Oh, you can't hear the music?
No.
Okay. Okay, so when you do get chance, and he's probably just babbling, you can't hear him. But let's what I want you to see is, here's that quick fix slip fix that I was talking about earlier, and it talks about all the bits and pieces you need. And it teaches you how to go about and repair. I'm not going to keep you bored on here, but just wanted to show you that there's a lot of great videos on YouTube on how to go about making repairs with irrigation systems and conversions. So good stuff out there. Okay, here is the Rainbird site. As you can see here, here's the talking about the pressure regulating bodies, breaking use, state required, right? PRS conversion guidelines. So it has a lot of valuable information on here, but one thing is whenever I go into any of these sites, I always go in as a professional landscaper. One thing is you can go in as homeowner, yes, but sometimes they, for some reason, they leave out a lot of information. So I'll just go in and click on professionals and then really start to look at the product. And so here we have drip, here you have spray bodies. You can start going in here and look at spray bodies or drip conversions. I mean, just great information. Let me go to this because this is where, okay, let's see. Accessories and tools. Let's go here. I think it was under here. The accessories and tools, usually where they have a lot of the extra stuff. Let's see. Nope, no, not there. Thought that it would be there for pressure. Let's go back to drip. Drip irrigation. Oh, so it's going to be here, control zone. So this is where they have the drip retrofit body. You can see here the various. So here's the spray to drip retrofit kit. Great information and great videos. So this video actually talk about how to go about retrofitting the area. Good stuff. Here's all the Hunter webs. This is the Hunter website. And as you can see here, when you're looking at pressure regulating bodies, you'll see this, they're usually noted like this, PRS30. This one is a PRS40. So I know this body is pressure regulated at 30 PSI and this one is to 40, depending on which nozzle you're going to use. So um, I'm going to just get to our RightScapeNow.com website. So here's where information where you can find on rebates. Click on rebates or residential rebates for us. So so here's all the different rebates. Smart controllers up to $255 per controller for less than an acre, or $35 per station if you have more. $4 per nozzle for the rebate. Rain barrels, turf removal. Here's the drip. The drip is 70 cents per square foot. After speaking to some professional contractors, it's about $1 a square foot to convert to drip irrigation. So at 70 cents, that's a pretty hefty rebate. And here's our pressure regulating bodies. And just like anything, click on the link and it'll take you to the page. So here's the pressure regulating spotty rebate. Spray body rebate. Make sure to read everything on the page, the terms and conditions. Here's the eligible products list. And of course, the application is right here. So, there are some requirements. So make sure to read this thoroughly if you're interested, or just with any program, any rebate program that we have. Make sure to read those terms and conditions so you can get to the right information. Okay, Joey, let's get some questions going, and then yeah. So just once again to let everybody know, so we are this presentation will be posted. You'll be getting slides as well and a slide handout of the presentation, and then you'll be getting links to all these different rebate pages, and I'll try to get you some manufacturers as well, so you can take a look at some videos and so forth. So, all right, Senor Joey, let's go for it.
Hey Juan.
Yeah.
So the first question that I have here is, I have a sprinkler zone that is part spray and part drip. Is this okay, or should it all be on the same valve?
Well, if you really want to get textbook, it really should be, keep different irrigation types separate. Spray head should be only spray heads, drip should only be drip. Spray heads emits water at gallons per minute, where drip, it goes into gallons per hour. But with that said, I do have what I have one Mickey Mouse area where I have a spray head system, and then I put in a little drip into the same area, but I'm using micro sprays. I'm using that spaghetti tubing and some other type of emitter types where it's a little mixed, and just know that, might not get as much water depending on the drip type, but it can be done. If it's working for you, I'm not going to say convert it, but just know that, you really never really want to mix uh, sprinkler types, but can you get away with it? Sure. Just as long as you're being in, as if you're using it in an efficient way and it's not producing any kind of waste and it's working out for you, just go ahead and keep doing that. But once again, just keep that in the back of your mind, really. Yeah.
Great. I have another customer here who's installing Carapia for their front and their backyard, and
Yes.
they want to know if installing a drip irrigation for the whole yard will be okay.
Carapia is a spreader. Um, has I don't think I've seen any projects where I've seen Carapia with drip. It might work if it's subsurface drip, a lot of, like I said, a lot of sports turf areas, a lot of places do subsurface irrigation, and maybe that'll work that way. Typically, it's better just to go overhead irrigation, just like you would do with a normal lawn for Carapia. Just go something more efficient, like I said, with maybe some rotating nozzles and have pressure regulation, of course, in it. But myself, I've never. But that's a good question. Carapia. Maybe reach out to the vendor and email them and ask questions about using drip with Carapia. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Great. Okay. Um, we have another question here. I'm constantly changing my sprinkler heads. What are the best spread heads to buy, or are rotors better? I'm looking for something in the range of 4 inches or higher.
Well, the spray bodies, they could go up as high as 12. Those rotary spray nozzles is just like a rotor. Some of those can shoot up to 30 feet, and they're adjustable, which makes them great. I mean, depending on the nozzle types, they sometimes have a range from like 8 to 15 feet and so forth. So, um, or even more. So just look at those different spray types. Rotors are great. I'm not going to say no. But the rotors have a certain limitation as far as how far they pop up. So just always, those are always just little things to look at. I would go either way. Like I said, I like using the MP rotators or the Rainbird rotary nozzles or just rotary nozzles in general on a really high pop up to be able to get that clearance and make sure you get that nice coverage. So just do a little extra research on those two. But if you want to talk about it more, just go ahead and email me at askjuan.com. And if you want to give me a contact number, we can maybe talk on the phone.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I got another question here about pressure. Is there a way to test the pressure on pop-up valves to know whether we have too much pressure?
Yeah, there is a little device. It's like a little T device with a pressure regulator on it, where you unscrew the nozzle. That little T device goes onto the stem, and then the nozzle goes on the top. And then you turn on the system, and it gives you what's called dynamic pressure or working pressure. That's really a way to check the pressure. You need to go to more of a irrigation shop to buy that. There shouldn't be too much. I think the little T is around $4 or $5, and the pressure regulator, depending on what type you get. But yeah, you can easily make it yourself. Once again, go on YouTube. There should be a video. I think I seen a video the other day checking pressure for spray heads.
Hmm. In the same realm as pressure as well, are the new built-in pressure regulators installed at the main source where the pipe comes up from the ground, or is it inside the sprinkler body?
No, it's on the sprinkler body. So it's in that stem. If you remember the cutout of that picture, the pressure regulator is built into that stem. So the water could be coming in, let's say 60 psi through the line, but as soon as it goes through that that stem and out the nozzle, it's at that prime at the optimum pressure that it's built for, whether it be
Mhm.
30 or 40 psi.
Great. And then one of the most popular questions we're having is are there any businesses or landscaping companies that you recommend or that we have out there in Irvine that can service drip irrigation systems as well as sprinkler systems?
Yeah, of course, we don't recommend companies or anything out there. Just like anything, it does, require a little bit of research on our part as far as homeowners and so forth. So, a lot of the irrigation shops, Ewing Irrigation, Site One, Imperial, they usually have business boards with, they'll put their cards up there. And I always look up the companies. If I'm hiring somebody, a contractor, I'll look up their California state license and see what's going on with them, and I'll ask for, I'll ask a lot of questions and see what they do and how they are they familiar. Do they know about pressure regulation and check valves and all kinds of stuff. So um, it's always one of those things to really ask a lot of questions if you're going to be hiring a professional. And I always like to go with the contractor that is licensed, so I have protection as a consumer.
Great. Thank you, Juan.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. It is 1 o'clock. Wow, 1:02. We're a little bit over, but thank you everybody for joining us once again. I'm going to be emailing everybody. The slides and the presentations will be posted. Uh, and if you have any questions, if you didn't have time to submit it during the chat right now, once again, you can email me at askjuan@irwd.com. I saw a question come in about our demonstration gardens. Right now, of course, everybody, please be careful out there with the COVID regulations and so forth. There are a lot of demonstration gardens out there where you can go take a look. Our main headquarters is close to the public, but a lot of the gardens are still out there, demo gardens. But just with anything, everybody, please take care and be safe out there. And once again, I just thank you for joining us today. And if you're interested, once again, we have various videos of other workshops that I've done on our website. Let me just show you that. It's under events and classes. Here we go. Sorry. Here's all the signups for the classes coming up. Past classes, you click on here, and that takes you over to good old Vimeo where our webinars are posted. So we had the controller, the new year starts now, ocean-minded landscaping, California-friendly landscape workshop. We're talking about plants. Just a lot of valuable information on here, and soon to come will be the sprinkler spruce-up workshop. Okay, everybody. Thank you once again, Joey Melody. Thank you so much. And yeah, once again, any questions, please, please, please email me, everybody. Senor Joey, make sure